continue from where we left off. What we're gonna do is continue this series on the reset, even though there have been many resets in history. Some on purpose, some by ignorance, and we're gonna see a couple of examples. So we done looking at these for now. Let's continue. So, on the last video, we talked about this right here, being a Moorish headdress. And here's the source. You're going to see in the source how resets happen by misunderstandings. So in Harvard University, let's say ancient Mexico, the Mexican standard. So I don't really want to get ahead of myself in this and get to Mexico yet, but what he's trying to show us how stuff get misinterpreted. So he say in a folio 472 of an ancient document catalog with other objects of feather work. So in the chest number 9, it is described as a Moorish hat of beautiful, long, lustrous green and gold-hued feathers, bedecked above with white, red, and blue feathers. So red, and blue, and gold rosettes and ornaments. In front, on the forehead, has a beak of pure gold. The term Moorish, as here applied, can scarcely be regarded as a deceptive one, inasmuch as Montezuma, the king of Tenochtitlan and Mexico, is subsequently designated as a Moorish king in the same inventory in 1596. So you see, these guys in Harvard, much later than the actual events, come and trying to tell you something, even though the records they reading from saying Moorish king and Moorish headdress, they gonna take it upon themselves and say it's deceptive. It is interesting to note the gradual changes that occur in the wording of the subsequent periodical official registration of this Moorish hat, and put it in quotes, right? In 1613, its description was fully reproduced in 1621. So you got 1596, the oldest record they got talking about this hat, this crown, calling it a Moorish. So the older you got, the more it's truthful. You can't go back and make up something before that and say, well, we said Indian in 14. No, where is it? In 1621, the word Indian was substituted for Moorish. So you got people always rediscovering things, and they're gonna reconstruct history. You had in the 70s the Afrocentric era of reinsurgence from the early 20s and early 1900s, where they reconstruct a lot of stuff too by just seeing something saying Moorish or something. Is it African or black? Because that's where they would come from in the so-called scholar academic world. But again, you already reset the world in 1492 on what is what. So they come from that point of view, especially coming out these colleges. So in 1788, so shit's still changing. The single alteration, the original text was again transcribed in 1730. And that's for most texts that we got today. It went through 5 or 6 different republishings. That's why I like documents in languages that I can look at the language, see there's old English, old French, old. And you say in 1788, however, a remarkable transformation was effected that had became an apron in the official record read and an Indian apron of long green feathers. So you see, stuff changed like that too. So you'll start to see a lot of that when we get to North America, stuff like this. The oldest records of DeSoto. The Choctaw language are almost identical with Choctaw. Just as we should expect, that means black warrior. You see how they put black Tuscaloosa. When they really look at what's been going on, they'll see that he had in the original. You see that at the bottom when they tell you the source. So it's talking about headdress like Moors. And the same thing we're talking about in the other video, Almazal. Those Almazers showing up in the tariffs of Andalusia before 1492. He also wore a mantle of feathers down to his feet. He was seated on some high cushions, and many of the principal men among his Indians were with him. So, you see. And you see, he had a cross and all, according to just like the Knights of the Order of St. John's of Rhodes. What they don't really get is that all these people that know about the other side of the world and the whole world ain't like people in the Western Hemisphere, especially kings and chiefs and stuff like that, because everybody got to deal with trade and commerce. In all these areas. But people in 1800 and 1900s knew dudes, so-called intellectuals, come in and act like they know about everybody. I won't tell you about shit. It happened in the 1500s. You in the 1800s writing about 1500s. Instead of just giving you the records like I do in these videos and tell you exactly what it say in the 1550, they gonna interpret it for you. So we've been talking about inside the same book, talking about the one headdress of the Tuscaloosa, and they've been to Sali. They've been this headdress. Some more forms of reconstruction. You see, the group Native American Culture and Civilization to talk about this. Now they ain't calling themselves Moors, they call themselves Native Americans. So that's like, to me, I listening to a French person talking about Zimbabwe. You see, like, if you ain't calling yourself that, you coming from a position of, like, ain't nobody gonna do massive research into other people. They gonna research themselves or what they think they is to the best of their ability. And why other people always gotta tell your story instead of you, what you claim. You say African Moors in America. he said things like, the best known African explorer with the Spanish expedition was Estevanico. And I already got a video about him, but I gonna make a new one because I'm going through original records myself. He explored Florida, Mexico, and parts of Arizona and New Mexico. Now he liked to paint Estevanico as a slave, which he gonna do. Serve it to some other guy, but the other guy don't got no story. He got the story, the popularized story. He will get the movie. So he just started to show how. I ain't get into that, but I'll make videos about that later. About the modern, everything, how that's part of Reconstruction. How they write the story. Let's continue. Estevanico, born in Morocco, which just means the land of Moors. That's just the English version of this term. You got Marruecos, you got Mauritania. All kind of different spellings, but it just means the land of Moors, right? But since they're gonna be putting things in modern times in our mind, like the word Africa, Morocco, we're supposed to believe in what we know of those places today. He said continental United States, present day continental United States, to try to give you understanding of what's going on in that time. By modernizing it, they did that for that. That's a good job of phrasing that for you, to have you understanding parts of Arizona, Florida, Mexico, even though those names might ain't exist for those places he been. So they put it like that, present day continental United States. They help you out for that, understand. But with the terms Morocco and Africa, oh yeah, they about to leave you in the dust. They making claims they don't really know about. So say you've been known by different names and everything. Esteban de Dorantes. De Dorantes means a place called Dorantes where he been from. They also got Azamor. So you see, Estebanico and Esteban the Moor. Some records call him Esteban el Negro, the black. So those reconstructions based off of Arthur, what he decided to write in his story. Enslaved as a youth, see, by the Portuguese. He was sold to a Spanish nobleman and taken in 1527. So you see where the Portuguese play. If you're watching these videos, they play in Brazil, in an Azamor in Brazil. He was sold to a Spanish noble in 1527 on the Spanish Narvaez expedition. He was one of the 4 survivors among the 600 men who started. That's incredible. And traveled for 8 years with Alvar Nunez Cabeza de Vaca. Now, in the original documents, they talk about wherever they went, they pick up a few so-called Indians, the books saying Indians that would have traveled with them. But in this, he tried to make it look like 600 men getting captured from Africa, really from Morocco, because he ain't never take you in Ghana and no other place in Africa in the story. But he talking about 600 men who started. Well, I guess he talking about the expedition, so it could be army, soldiers, whatever, Spanish. But he would have been with Alvar Nunez Cabeza, again, to his books and stuff. De Vaca, so he's been from a place called Vaca, saying of the cow or the bull. Andres Dorantes, somebody else with Dorantes de Carranza, and Alfonso de Castillo, so we're dealing with the Castilians. Malandando across northern New Spain, that's Mexico, see, tell you, present day, U.S. Southwest and northern Mexico. Before they reached Spanish forces in Mexico City in 1536. Later, Esteban served as, his name really is Mustafa. Mustafa de Azamor, if we deal with the Latin. Served as the main guy for return expedition to the southwest, where he was killed in the Sunni city of Hawiku in 1539. They didn't really know how he died. He could just disappear on them. But they say he had already know all the plants and everything in the Americas. So it would make sense that he been in a different Morocco. We go look at my videos on the geography. There's Azamor, Brazil. And the Portuguese in Brazil. But stories like this, they ain't gonna explain that to you. They're gonna keep you in a subservient state. They don't know what's going on. This man could have been the head of that shit. He kept fighting other Muslims in his own and shit. All kind of shit been going on, but they ain't gonna give you none of that context. See, Moor/slaves. And it's not, see, stuff like this. In the 17th century, 1600s, whatever, some runaway Moor slaves began their own colonies, the largest of which was the Republic of Palmeiras in northeast Brazil. See, that's one of the Moorish cities or whatever places that's still been around, but they start calling it runaway maroon towns and stuff like that. Then now he's just part of Brazil, but the history book's gonna act like a bunch of Africans been running away all over America, creating towns, even though these people are supposed to be foreign and ignorant. Like, we ain't even creating towns today. And there's plenty of land we can go establish settlements like they say these people allegedly did. Throw that in there for you, just in case you find something that been in more town in areas where they talking about. It's so-called Brazil, right? The Morocco. So they know how he looks, so they draw this. That's how they claim that they know. It's still a story, I suppose. I mean rebut them, but somebody tell me that I ain't know what we're talking about because they got a degree and they don't. So now, about to rebut all the so-called official history. They talking about what is what. I ain't care who show up in the history book. If they say Indians or Africans or blacks or whatever, coming out of Yale, Harvard, wherever, so-called scholars. And then people are going to decide which one makes sense to you, what makes sense. Like this. The name has not changed, nor has San Vicente, Grenada, and the witnesses. These place names, now you know the island of Grenada, you might don't know about San Vicente and the witnesses. You can Google map those. But these names, you can go put in Google or archive.org. Change your settings of your search to a certain date. Just go to don't put no beginning date, but put books before the year 1500s. Change the language to English if you want to. And these places and these things gonna pop up with stories attached to them. These so-called scholars ain't doing that. They parroting a bunch of misinformation. So Angra or Porto Caballos in the Gulf of Honduras until the 18th century. Punta de la Calera on the island of Trinidad, both mentioned in the Chronicle de Zahara, which is one of the main stories that got a lot of reconstructed history nowadays that come from that concerning so-called black people. In slavery, they reconstruct the story behind a lot of this Chronicle de Zahara, the Chronicles of Guinea, Santo Tome in the Orinoco, Mazagan, Puerto, the Port or Angra de Santa Ana in the Amazon, Santa Cruz on Isle of Marijo. We see that in the last video. I was self-looking on Google Maps. And in Colombia, Tenerife, of course, La Palma, San Miguel, and San Cristobal, the Canaries, as well as the Canary Islands in the northeastern parts of Brazil. A place called, all these place names that still around from the time that they should have gone around and changed before somebody like me came. Beyond the Angra Port of Santa Ana was Azamor, right? You know, Mustafa Azamor, port of Morocco. At that time, this Santa Ana port off Brazil, off the coast. This they say basically the closest to Spain. So with the rescue, so let me see these areas. We're about to read about the area in a minute. Wait a minute. It's a huge course. Thank you. All right. Yeah, right here. About to read about this area. Got the Santa Cruz on the island of Marajo. In Bellum. If you one area on the planet I need is this area. Shit. They gonna put a big ass Jesus down there on me. Thought I was going, huh? The fisheries and the shores. You're gonna talk about all that. See, well, Azamor, the port of Morocco. Morocco is the region. And Mazagan or Mazagal, 12 leagues from the mouth on the other side of the river. There was the island of Mogador or Mogolo with its imposing port on the other side. It had for its capital Teguios, called Santa Cruz by the Christians, like the Brazil of Cabo. The toponym is common in the Indies. So we see that earlier. Santa Cruz is common. In common maps, Santa Cruz appeared on the island of Marajo. Arab Sierra, the kingdom of Sus, the port of Safi, last frequented by Castellanos on that coast, belonged to this crown. Hostile Morocco. The Christians did not penetrate into a Barbary 300 leagues long with which annexed the Guinea of Los Rios, leaving the first Moorish port 9 leagues from La Canaria. So that's the La Canaria we talk about on that coast, the eastern part of Brazil that we just see. So which fleets crossed. Philip II lent to Guinea 500 and up to 1,000 league, of course. Alonso de Guzman reduced them to 300 because 700 belonged to Brazil. And the Khan of Santa Gadea affirmed that the Sharif had 300 leagues of the coast of Africa, all hers, quote unquote. She always gonna put them on quotes for you because of your modern day understanding of the term Africa. Just to tell you, stop thinking like that, just because we talking about an older time period. And these places got these stories that people ain't telling. See, the Ghanaians that did right there about these areas that we talking about. We got stories of Moors going into Guinea, taking it from Portuguese, but they want you to always come over here. They won't play with Morocco. Morocco I pay but a closer Morocco and Guinea, that's the gather really. That's over here. That'll make the story make more sense if you got close, like 10 days you're going from Morocco to the Indies, then you're talking about this one. If the book saying that, common sense. This one take 20 days or month or whatever. But this one called Algarve de Barbaria. Wow, this one called Morocco at one time. We will get into a lot of details on that in the future. Names of these people. Arabic sources translated and Spanish sources. Latin sources are French, Dutch. So, leaving the first Moorish port 9 leagues from La Canaria. See, I'll read that. So this area, we'll talk about this. The dispute between Portugal and Spain for the American Levant, which did not allow itself to be dominated by the white. The Castilians tried to prolong New Andalusia until the Portuguese Holy Cross. So the Portuguese Holy Cross was this area. New Andalusia just ended up being this area. They were trying to extend it to this area. But what they really talking about is getting a factory. So they get a factory somewhere over here. They would have put on their maps New Andalusia from here to there, to that factory. Place where they can trade and buy and shit. That's where the Portuguese first premier been at, because they had some factory over here at that time. And they called it first premier. First cross. Holy Cross. After annexing the whole with the crown of Portugal in 1582, Alonso de Guzman. So after, they been warring on the Iberian Peninsula between Spain and Portugal. And when they annexed the crown of Portugal, Alonso de Guzman traveled by royal order from the south that the Rio Aguirre raised. So the Rio Aguirre is Amazon today, to the south of Araya, starting from where the straits end. He will follow it forward. Everything that's in quotes is from actual documents from that time, or from a source that the book have in it. Playing in the Arache La Memoria Safi and Cabo Arguer, which if that source gonna be the oldest record that we got. That's a source. Talking about that thing or event. So playing in Alarache, La Memoria, Safi, and Cabo de Arguer. So there we just see the American Levant America. All these state of, all that thing end up being under Portugal. They start making Capitina. But at the same time, still under you, because you got trading houses too. Just forget how to operate in that international function. These states still doing it, basically. But you look at maps, you'll see the Capitina of this and that and that and that. Bunch of them shit. But that's what we talking about when we say the Moorish American Cabo de Aguirre and shit. Reaching all the way up to the salt mines, all the way up to the salt. But you got salt flats everywhere. But the whole salt flats is in this area. They start selling that shit too. But you've already been selling this if you go look up the old Moorish gold of Spain and Andalus before 1492. With a bunch of different mints and different Moors, but those men all been the money of the stream. So the new Andalus here that we're talking about, through the south, where he going to get the south from. When he annexed Portugal, he already been like, okay, we can go to the south of Araya. So we see what happened on the peninsula is the same thing that always happening, even today. You see how they put the Jews and the Moors in ghettos, which is reservation wards, parishes, all these different Christian things that connect to the settlement or the factory. For disembarked Moors and Jews, disembarked means you outside your own laws and government, lost at sea some way. So it puts you under the Christian thing. Start to make laws against you. They had the places called Morerias and Juerias. Same thing in the colonies that they had over here too. So you see, saying stuff like this. He the black outcast instead of the Moorish outcast. So the Asian, they got international rights to the fact that Asia is under the laws of nation, as a place and people on that land will be considered Asian in colloquial English sense. That would be accepted by the black that don't got no intellectual sense. Don't got no sense. It's not a people. Americans got the highest amount of rights, set of rights as Americans. And many different types of Americans based off the law. His rights come under her. He got his rights. Looking at his profile, if that's him, he got his rights as a Moorish American, all the rights. He ain't gotta get nothing put in place. Rome know his rights. That's why they gotta make him be something else. Cause they can't go against the law. The law is what's right. So they ain't gonna be wrong. They'll make you be wrong before they be something wrong. Do something that you can come later and say, hey, that's wrong. Look at this. And people will come to sense and say, yeah. So, start right there. the stories. A lot of the stories get reconstructed over time because you go read the old stories. The Moorish. You see that? He always had that band on. Inhabit of the Moorish. That's what they call that band with sword them. And start putting the pistol on them. And they red, white, and blue. There were some history books. So the French, like you gotta think about it, they always used to talk about just Frenchmen. Then after the Civil War, everybody started being freemen, you see. And Frenchmen, some scholars believe etymologically means freemen. So a lot of things you gotta go rediscover. It's the Museum of the Orishas in Cuba. The Moorish architecture. Another Cuban hotel. Like Little Andalusi. So, say America. Rome would have turned this to a pin. At Rome, in Sicily, they would have turned this to a pin and weird with diamonds and everything and say it's a blackamoor. But history books would see the word America and see, and write Indian, you see. It's perspectives. The reason why we say Moorish instead of Indian, because they use the term Indian to make you disassociate your history. By that term associates you in your subconscious to the American continent or to the Indian landmass of the day, but that's people want to make that delineation to you. But everybody subconsciously, that word, but it only been two empires, it been the Moorish and the Christian. So at Rome, they the one who instilled that into the psyche by calling it the West Indies and the people Indian. Simple as that. And they tell you they come to subdue the Saracens. They using terms that they know. So if we know that, the fact, why we keep going along with it? Where are we conquistadors? We Inquisition. We keeping up with that shit ourselves. So in the Virgin Islands, this could be Virginia, Charleston, 1700s or whatever, but it's the same thing. So they make a film about Araya and the salt industry in modern times because it's still going on from the oil records. Sidi Araya, one of the Moorish kings of Morocco, named in Sidi de Araya. We just finished talking about the salt flats of Araya from the Medina Sidonia Duke going to get the salt. But this industry, you can't hide all this. Going to trickle down if you know what's up. There's a fort on that same coast. Shipwrecks and shit. Routes. Ports. Salt mines in Araya. The most salt mines this way. You can see Cabo Deserto salt in records. Cabo Deserto. It's supposed to be in Morocco too. You got South Flats of Utah, South Flats of New Mexico, Bolivia, Texas. See, this is the Cabo Deserto off the records with the South Flats. Do your own research. Cabo Deserto, Henry the Navigator granted the deserts, which is Cabo Deserto, through the order of Christ to Punta Tristal with the license to export salt. So this whole course is really a lot of deserts, especially in Mexico. In other parts, we got this northern coast, beaches and deserts, South Flats, right there. All that is a desert land. Just because they say it turns like Morocco and the same stories, they put them in Africa. But these cultures is beach cultures, sand, and lagoons, fisheries. Cabo Deserto, the Cape of the Deserts. At that time, being called islands too. And now right, they confuse 1800s so-called scholars. They see something and say the island of Africa, they go looking over there for a small island off the coast. But they could have been talking about a peninsula or something over here, or anything, because of the usage of words. The salts of Orion. Just one of the shit that they should hide, because this shit got way too much records going back then. But Henry the Navigator, he ain't supposed to, like we said in the last video, they sent him to Africa and back to Portugal. What you doing talking about places near Texas and shit. You see the Punta Galinas. Like Port of Gali, Portugal, in a different tongue, in the West, more Western Latin. See, Euribia, not Arabia, but Euribia though. The Mamelukos, the Mamluks. Mamluks ain't supposed to be in America. They never got a whole port called Mamluks. But those stories pan out when you see those stories of the Portuguese in the Sahara buying slaves from Moors off the coast of Morocco and stuff like that. And you match up with the wars that they've been having on beaches and shit with these Moors in the early 1400s. See, before 1470, like, alright, thus it was not until 1471 that the kingdom of the Algarve led to the kingdom of the Algarves, which means the West, Algarve, due to the increase of Portuguese possessions in northern Africa, which were made as possessions of the kingdom of Algarve. The Portuguese monarchs therefore adopted the title that they would use until the fall of the monarchy in 1910. So they say the kings of Portugal and the Algarves of either side of the sea in Africa. See, but Wikipedia gonna keep them on away from the Western Hemisphere. You can talk about both of the groups of Moors that they've been talking about. They've been talking about Moors from Africa and America in their books. I'll show you how to see that in a minute. Talk about this in the last video. And he talking about ancient ports and shit, trade. We talking about that. And that right here. So the Algarves of either side of the sea in Africa. So they on Wiki they smart, they using sources. They seeing this and translating them. And they say the name of the Algarvian kingdom suffered some minor changes due to the Portuguese North African conquest, which were considered as extensions of the kingdom of the Algarve. So they're saying the original kingdom of the Algarve, which is these ports, towns, lagos, and stuff like that. They're saying these conquests from these ports is attached to these kingdoms. But Wiki wants you to believe, they say the Algarves, which is the west on either side of the sea. They want you to say this one and this one. That's what they want you to think. The story's got terms like Morocco, and Agadir, Safi. Juan I of Portugal added to the title King of Portugal and the Algarve the title Lord of Ceuta, and his grandson Alfonso of Portugal in turn styled himself Lord of Ceuta. So really, I gonna have to check that source, but I think he's really Lord of Fez. Not Ceuta. But they're looking at the Ceuta port. You see how just a port would be the whole thing to the parties. You see a lot of Ceuta and Al-Kakir in Africa. After 1458, the 1471 conquest of Assyria, Tangiers, and Larache, together with North African previous holdings, led to the creation of the title the Algarves from either side of the sea in Africa. Algarve de Alemar, leaving the European Algarve to become the Algarve behind the sea. Algarve de Aquimar. So they got this, they most likely intentionally misinterpret that for you, because Algarve de Alemar is the North Africa and America to the Portuguese at that time, 1470s, 1480s, but it before 1492, so they playing with you. North of Africa. So we just want to sing and like this right here means beyond the sea, not either side of the sea. That means behind. That most likely means behind. That means behind more than this. This means the near sea. They were talking about this one right here. This is what they've been talking about, the Moors of North Africa of the day. This Fez in Morocco. And this part, that been Arquim, because that's the near sea, that's near them. The behind the sea is behind the sea, not behind the strait. Because basically you saying these Portuguese ain't even been they've been sailing just in this area when the one they say they're the one who been the beginnings of the European discovery of the planet. So now you're saying they just play in this area, in this right here, because you ain't take them across the sea for real. Trying to say the European, probably what I showed you earlier is the Portuguese western area, north southwestern area. In history books, they want to say when you see that during autography, the Aquamar, that's what they talking about. And Alan Mars, to them in Africa, in our modern scenes of Africa. But to us, we know when you see that, they talking about America, most of America. See, the west beyond the sea in Africa, because they been calling it Africa, so they still would have put Algarve de Alan Mar in Africa and Algarve de Alan Mar in Aquim Mar in Africa, or not in Africa. If they talking about this side, they would say Aquim Mar in Africa. Then you know the near sea in Africa, the beyond the sea in Africa, or Morocco or whatever. Let me see something. We'll get to that in a second. The Zaydani treasury. Zaydani was a Moorish king. Sidam, like the port of ancient Canaan. Treasury are manuscripts belonging to the library of the Moroccan Sultan Zidane al-Nasir bin Ahmed, which was seized by the Spanish pirates in the Atlantic waters in 1612 AD. You see Atlantic waters, but they be reading the original documents and know where, and are present today in the Escorial Treasury in Spain. The manuscripts are of great scientific importance and are one of the most famous scientific treasuries in the history of Morocco, as they consist of the books of the Zidani library and his father, Sultan Ahmed al-Mansour al-Dahabi, and what he acquired from the libraries of his brother Sheikh al-Mamun and Abu Faris after their death. And the Zaydani treasury includes studies in various fields in multiple languages, including Turkish, Persian, and Latin. It was claimed by Morocco diplomacy in the 17th century until 2009, when Spain allowed Morocco to copy the microfilm. And the King of Spain delivered it to the King of Morocco on July 16. So, just the Escorial, where it's at. What we're gonna talk a lot about him in our stories. Man, rest of the Moors. When we find that these Moorish Americans, that's when we right. So they got the different treaties they know. Dealing with after 1492, I seen the last video. After the reset, that's when they start with the Treaty of Tordesillas, which specifically say the Saracens, infidels or whatever they, but they say the kingdoms and the duchies which goes to show that they already been talking about kingdoms. So we got to go back and find out what kingdom they're talking about. That's why I do geography lessons, old geography, according to what records we got. And you see everything left of that solid purple line is what Castile claimed, which been really a little bit closer to the over. But the kingdom of New Granada was where the area stopped at. These places, why they even called Kingdom of New Granada, because Moors still been running around in it. They probably just had a factory. They on their map. They act like, all right, we got conquest. We take over all this land. No, we just got a factory, and they still getting the factory robbed and burned down and shit. Take back from the Sharif come and take all this from them. That's why Guyana and all those other places still keep it named till later. The Dutch and the French and all them start to do the same. But we can see Moors back and forth, Christian and Moors battling for the trade, control of the trade, the Pope and the Sultan. So Rome, no. You see, with North America, they got the Cape of the Mauricianos. Which is another term in the language for Moroccans. Of course, South Morocco. So the Reconstruction history American history always start off with Isabel and Ferdinand taking Morocco. Granada. And St. Christopher Columbus. 1491, conquest of Granada. 1492, discovery of America. That's in every Reconstructed school we got. So let's do our own. We already don't forget what they tell us. That's the real so-called discovery of America, quote unquote. See, 1246, the first Admiral Castile selected. So you just know that that means that that's their first discovering of being able to get some kind of port or trade rights or some kind of what they call conquest. So 1248, the conquest of Seville. So when they get Seville, they get control of what's coming into the ports of Seville and the records and the governing of that and where it's connected to on this side. Right? So we show you who Castile claim and how we're going to tell you why and how. 1252, Fernando III, nothing would be, well, this one of the things you can go look up that he said, Wikipedia say that they talk about this and they say that he say that, like, so I'd be like, they be knowing about these events and know how important these events is, but don't explain it. He say nothing will be obtained he tell his son nothing will be obtained while passing the sea. Fernando III tell his son, if you don't go across Allende, Alan Mar, the Algarve de Alan Mar, then you ain't gonna accomplish nothing because that's where the goal at. So ain't nobody even thinking about the term America or Indies yet, but he already got Spaniards or Castilians going into these Andalusian ports and dealing with America, the trade. So 1252, so 1260, the Crusade de Alan Mar. And think Wikipedia called it the ninth or the 10th Crusades, but they put it in the east with Tunis in that Mediterranean over there. But we got it in quotes. The record books show that he asked the Pope for a crusade, the Alain de Lamar, which is the beyond the sea. That's how the Castilians said, and the Portuguese, we just look at that. But they both, that's the only thing they had know at that time. And when they did, they sacked Saleh and probably set up something in Ceuta. So he had a sack of Calique, Chalice. Alfonso X, that's 1263. House of Beatrice de Guzman, his natural daughter. A lot of this they're going to say in Wiki. Of Alonso III of Portugal, he wore the Algarve and the Darwin. So that's a title that he picked up through the Guzmans. Alfonso III of Portugal, he coming to scene. Alfonso X of Castile, 1288, take out bread for Almar. So that's in the record in 1288. Sancho IV war with Portugal for the Algarve. So Castile and Portugal fighting for these ports in Iberian Peninsula. 1309, the Templars persecution. That got a lot to do with American history, because the church been trying to find out where they even getting the gold from. And then after that, they were trying to hide the secrets, so they persecute Moors. Anybody who know about the gold of Allende, Alan Mar. So Alan Guzman has died, so he been from here, so he didn't know. But he talked about a lot in history. Fernando IV of Castile, the temple extinct, 1312. So basically the temple ain't really extinct. You got these Portuguese coming up now, and these French from Dieppe, and these different ports all around Europe. They know how to navigate and stuff. These is the leftover knowledge of beyond the sea, America. That's why we put all this in the discovery of America history. You gotta go through all this to know. Can't just be like, hey, the more help Columbus. That's the child way of thinking. Got that one line that I always get from somebody inside the chat. Oh, we in 1246, you in 1492. Imagine how many people already that know about this place by the time 1492 come around. They would create that story in 1492. Columbus is just a title for a bunch of them. Discovery means register. So these commerce, points of commerce dealing with America and Europe. And walls that lead to you capitulating a fort or a factory to one of these so-called new Christian kingdoms, temples. That way you ask the Pope for a crusade. That's military. That's a military come to fight. Saracens. Look. So look at this as everything connected to America in these points. 1312, 1320, Dionys of Portugal creates the Order of Christ, And that's when the temple get extinct. So now they getting the knowledge of the travel and shit like that. DD on this, another one. So all these things you look up. 1333, Abu Malik de Fez takes Gibraltar to Castile, or from Castile. 1340, Malik into Malik and Jufri Tenorio, a naval battle. So you got Moors over there fighting too for these boats. So now you got connections with Greenland. 1343, they dealing with Greenland. 1344, Luis de Cerda, he the prince of the Fortunatas. So that's an island over here, that's a set of islands. Alfonso the 9th of Castile, 11th of Castile, comes in the scene. Alfonso the Bravo of Portugal comes in 1357, and you can start looking at what kind of things they meant. You can start seeing these guys meant gold, because that means they got connection with America. They can buy and sell. They can get gold for something else or whatever. (1374), the Normans into the Normans expedition to Africa, was just America to them at that time. Africa to them, but America to us. They would set up Cabo Frio in Mauritania. Henry II of Castile step in. Fernando of Portugal. The Normans make the Akara Tower. So we stop at 1383. At the end of this, you will get some more events that lead up to 1492. Isabel sending the registrar Columbus to reconstruct all this information and places that already getting set up. All these claims come from these events. And Isabel come as she is Castile, so she go back the furthest, which that's what the laws suggest. But going back way before 1246, he already dealing with Moors. You see, she had to get Seville 2 years later. Not she, but Castile. Go look up who the monarch. Go look up the history of Castile and see what they say about 1246. They're gonna take all these dates and give you a story about these dates, so that means they know about the true timeline. Because I took these dates and looked through to see, let's see if they talk about the event. And they do. Bringing up everything, Beatrice de Guzman and stuff like that. But they're going to use the exact terms literally. They're going to say Africa. Yeah, the Normans been in Africa in 1374. Okay, we already get to this in the last bill. So they're talking about these sons of Yoktan, which is supposed to be in Arabia. Like we were saying earlier, the Knights of Christ stole, remember, this be in Arabia to them. And that's what his map maker believed too. Ophir, Sheba, Abimael, Moabites, Canaanites in these areas. And they're probably doing it based off of etymology of place names and all type of language, customs. Probably fair would be Peru or Fez. say Opet, Opaz, and Fez, and Faz. Let's hurry up and get to that. Yeah, inshallah. So, it's another example of how they'll put the history in there. The Norman noble Jean de Bethencourt and the Poitevin Godefroy de La Salle conquered the Canarian Islands. Remember we were talking about earlier how the Canarian Islands been just been places they've been calling things over here. The lands of Fuerteventura and El Herrero of the Atlantic coast of Africa. You see, they know the books say Africa, so they gonna say that too. Their troops were gathered in Normandy, so that's the French, Gascony, and were later reinforced by Castilian colonists. You see, Castilians been dealing with the same things, but they say the numbers of French went to this Africa right here, this Canaries. Modern history put Canaries as the East. The overdose history put it in the East. But that's been Canaries and Indies and Tierra Firme mainland. Tierra Firme. Firm land mainland of the Oceano Mar. The atom of the ocean sea and all that been in part of history. The crown of Castile. North Spain, Castile, just like our record saying. They get control of these boats or get rights to these. So he going on his conquest for Castile. In our record books, we're going to show you about Bethencourt. He wanted to, once before Columbus was going to help with the conquest, which is fighting and then getting treaties and shit that they all later forget about. So on our map we can see Tenerife and the Barbaria Herrero, the Gran Canaria, La Palma, and the Lanzarote. But what this Wikipedia page is talking about this, because this near Africa today. And they got those same names that we just finished reading out. Slick shit. But what we're saying is that they put so much history in these low ass islands, but don't want to talk about, want to act like all this happened late. Venezuela and Colombia and all those history started late, ain't nothing but going on over here. Wild Indians running around and all that. All the wars with the Moors and the empires and kingdoms and the early records. Want to talk about these low ass islands? Ain't nobody warned for this. They'll war for this shit, but not this shit. Which one you want, this or this? They weren't even killed. They weren't even saying they man out to get killed for no estates over here. Nothing over here. They'll just do a quick treaty over there. Like, my man, come to peace with that little shit. But these talk allegedly, they gonna act like you meet John de Bethencourt. That's what he going to conquer. He going over there to fight, not here. Not this Castilian area. But they gonna do that at the bottom. The record book showed that he did that for Castile. John de Bethencourt coming to Castile history as a conqueror for them. So no matter which one they're talking about, they will be able to put these names over there to reconstruct history because they had both of them anyway under the standard. So that's why I was trying to show earlier. Got the Gibraltar and Zulia. That's why they talk about that. Like, ain't no real history dealing with Spain and Moors and stuff like that. They just talk about colonization of America, genocide the Indians, and start naming stuff Gibraltar. And Ceuta, remember? We got Ceuta on the other side too, which is supposed to be all the history only applied to that one, but yet the Spaniards dealing with that area, this area right here in that record, Gibraltar in that area too. I was trying to find that on the model A on there, they wouldn't let me pop it up. So we look at their traditions, you see, they showing you all the cast of characters. They call us a blackamoor. But this wrong. We dealing with the history, dealing with conquests and shit like that. Not only on the peninsula, but a worldwide thing. Just don't let the term Africa or Morocco or any term throw you off. Look into it. Betancourt took the title of the King of the Canary Islands as a vassal to Henry III of Castile, you see. It's Castile, they gonna tell you this. Oh yeah, Castile got all that and they shit in the early days. But they didn't wanna just talk about this. Act like they talking about this. Well, for Betancourt, shit, Betancourt come down, yeah, and register everything real quick. But they ain't used the discovery story until 1492 to reconstruct everything, even the shit that they already did, these events. She already had to know that, so she gonna reconstruct all those old places and those old ports and forts and shit that these shit create, these conquests. She and nephew Macy Yachty Betancourt sold the rights to the islands to Enrique Perez de Guzman, you see. And when they marry into that line, they get certain footholds. They married to the house of the Beatrice de Guzman, and then get the dowry for Algarve. So all those clues they talking about America and a lot of these stories, they're not saying nothing. All this in Kewuda, Zulia. They even know the history. It's in the traditions. Not about Moors and Christians, how they look at it. The truth. Look at that Negro Felipe. We don't talk about Felipe a lot. Another Kewuda in Mexico. See these ports connected to Kewuda on the other side. You see New Granada, Santa Fe. Look up the Treaty of Santa Fe, that's what they're talking about in that. Look at all the sea walls, Pirates of the Caribbean shit going down for these ports. And see how stuff changed. Cabo al Morocco and becomes Maracaibo today, be its our language. Rome put it as Cabo al Morocco. Later on, maps come and say, hold up, that don't make sense. The Cape of Al Morocco. It must mean Maracaibo. Talk about a lot of different place names in this book. The map showing the land of Black Tierra, the Negroes over here too. And like we said earlier, the Cape of the Moroccans. And this right here shows that too. Andalusian words and shit. Moroccan and Marrakesh and Malacca. These areas. So your boy Azamor could have been born in one of these Morocco. For all you know, it just means land of Moors. Could be anywhere. So it's when you 1499, 1502 expeditions off Jeddah. From Qadez, you see, connect reports. They start to find out, learn about their own all the conquests centuries earlier than this did. Just the what we read, the what we got over there. So we see the turtle industry is reiterating from the last video. The turtle industry is something good to look at. To give you a lot of real history. Island of Tortuga, the old name of Haiti, Turtle Island, Island of Tortuga. You see pairs. So you could turn the F and turn it to F. Fairs, you'll see a lot about that. The fish. You got on that the symbolism. The fish. C. Tortuga. And so we got the sea goddess. We're gonna see how the sea is always our thing. Yamoja, which everybody got those festivals. We're gonna see in tradition how it's connected to this history. See, these are the old kingdoms. And they always dealing with the mermaid goddess of the sea, right? So the kingdom of Fez, in Spanish is pez, which is fish, from the Latin pisces. Got divine meanings, they got different meanings, like we about to see. But the sea, the Caribbean was called, that's where a lot of the sea walls been at, like we saw earlier in the Caribbean. The Little Sea, or Marpaquena, which where they put the mermaid story in, the Little Sea. Put the Pirates of the Caribbean story in. Santa Cruz de Marpaquena. We got one we had one near New Orleans. And the Caribbean Sea was called Little Sea too. So, and like we showed in the last video, how most of the Moors set up the kingdoms around water. And that's what a lot of us had today. And we still having this one festival right here. Probably got one in every so-called black community. Different styles, different ways we do it, but they all still go back to and number 7. About Brazil, you see they do Brazil first because those Moors in Brazil ain't been playing with them, as we saw earlier in the video. They've being themselves clean, more independent longer in the history timeline. So we see this festival, the blue and white representing the sea and the coast. White as in God, the goddess of the sea. And Maya, the daughter of Atlas. All this Moorish history told in the Greek terminologies. Maya, the I is a Y. Daughter of Atlas, that were called the Atlantides. So a lot of Moorish American history just hadn't been in terms of mythology and shit. The orders of the 7 Pleiades, planets and stuff like that. So you know that Uruguay and Cuba, Hesperus. We talk about that a lot, right? We in the West, which the old ancient place name over here, the Hesperus. And some more information. Sea symbols, shells, sea stones, fish, again, the pairs or the phase. The fish name, anchors, anything deal with sea. Just to show you that all these people are the ancient Moors in the history books. You just confused what way they the history events talking about. See, the gift of Lamania when the fishermen celebrate their devotion to the queen of the ocean. See, Moorish fishermen. All these so-called African American events in America, all over, being celebrated in tradition. You forget the history, but remember what our mama used to do every summer. In Brazil, Imagens to synchronize Our Lady of Navigators, Nossa Senhora dos Navegantes, and Our Lady of the Conception, Nossa Senhora de Concepción. Australia, same thing. All over Brazil, on the South America, yeah. Seven Mauritius in America. At least the widespread kingdoms and dominions of the Moors in that time, before all the reconstruction and the baptized, enslaved, and fighting and shit. They had the boy on the ocean, all white, like we said in the last video. See, they always gonna connect you to the modern day West Africa, even though this is the West Africa we more connected to. The old West Africa. The far west. The other Africa we connected to too, because we've been going back and forth in our books. In West Africa, you're more just worship as the highest ranking river deity. In Brazil and Cuba, worship mainly as the sea and ocean goddess. Omo, Asia, fish, you see? The fish always show up in this. Ancient Egypt and Canaan, Cortesh, a goddess of fertility. Also been used, we can see that later. They used to put that on the ships in America. This deity, it's the same deity. The two snakes, you see, Mama Wata. Look at Merman. Everything mythic, but they're talking about the fish. So-called Greek, but this Etruria, and it definitely got a lot of history dealing with America, but they put it in myth. See, West Africa, the same thing. The two tails, merman. Egypt, fish, scales, merman. So-called, they say the tribe, the Dogon tribe brought us for them to show one of the gods that they've been dealing with a fish. So all is just symbolisms of Moors in the old times, but the history is so old and they so reconstructed in our mind that we only know 1492 in Spanish, Christian, Roman history of America, and do not connect the whole world in ancient times. So, same thing. He got on the flesh. Talk about so-called Jesus, he was the fisher. And you know he dealt with those seaports that already were dealing with America by the time his alleged, if you want to go by the biblical history, it definitely been doing trade by his time with America and even going around them seaports. See, the fish. Ancient Egypt, goddess of life and protection, still with the fish. South America, they find a lot of these artifacts. Find these type of shit. And this could have been, the Etruscans type, North America, but also so-called Greek. Mama Wata in America as Mama Waka. Waka. Goddess of the child who was the fish, or the navigator, or the Moor. Just like they put on the same painting, they put the son, her son, on the top of the throne as what we saw earlier, the fisher. All the symbolism. You the fisher today. Messiah, anointed son, Lamb of God, the fisher. Okay. Mama Wakan, Mama Wata, Africa, and America, Southern Africa, and America. So, we see. In fact, let's start right here and start right here in the next one.